everything was all stripped down, so basically give everything a good visual, as well as a good clean up and check everything out. There's some wear marks on here. By the looks of things, the rockers, or the rocker shafts, weren't installed correctly in the rocker carriers, or in the cam carriers, because there's a slight fret in there, which usually is because it's actually been mounted over to one side too much, and as you tighten up the bolt, it swells up the flange there as such to lock it in place. But if you have them not mounted correctly, it starts to nip up the rocker itself, and that's what's actually caused that fretting around there.
Yeah.
And it's actually started to pick up. It's quite common. You see this with people who've sort of rebuilt the engines. When we come to rebuild the engine on the film, we'll show you the correct way of actually installing these, because they have to be set off centre, so that obviously the rocker runs in the centre of the rocker shaft.
Yeah.
These rockers, I mean, they're sort of they're not too bad there. What we'll do is blast all these up in the vapor blast once again and have a look at them. But there's slight marks in the rockers there, pitting where it's just gone through the hardening, and then you've got to check the bearings as well. These are unusual actually. These don't run these are very, very early ones, which don't run bushes inside. These run steel to steel, and just rely on the correct clearance, which is sort of what they've gone back to with the latest stuff. With the 993s, they've gone back to not running a bush inside the rocker, and actually running it on a steel, steel to steel. And they use this process quite a bit. They use it in the motorcycle industry for little ends now, on pistons. So it's quite common practice, I must admit. When you think about this, it's back in the 1960s, so it's been around for some time. But it went in and out of favour with manufacturing, and they probably do it more now because of the cost of manufacturing and making up bushes to go into these things, where they used to practically run for the lifetime span of an engine anyway. So, but yeah, what we do is we clean all these up and give them a good visual. With the race ones, generally speaking, what we do is we shot peen these. Cover up the pad and the bearing surfaces, remove the adjuster, and then shot peening, which is basically stress removal or stress relieving, all over the surface.
Rocker, yeah.
That's it, yeah. Which we've got the plant here to do that. So we do a lot of stress relieving.
What do you do about? You mentioned the faces are just losing a little bit of the hardening there.
Well,
how do you get around that?
On a case like that, to be honest with you, it really is a new rocker. I mean, you can sort of see if you catch the light. There's a little line there, which is just starting to. You can just start to see it wearing. So ideally, it would be a new rocker. I mean, the nice thing is about the new rockers is they do come bushed anyway, but also they're a lot stronger. There's a lot more meat around the neck, and so it's a lot more durable. But yeah, unfortunately, in situations like that, it really is sort of put a new rocker in, because you don't know, especially seeing as you're running new camshafts. We intend on running these new cams.
Yeah.
It would be a false economy to stick an old rocker in there, because you don't want the rocker
sure.
wearing the new cam.
And presumably the pins will be new as well. Then.
Rocker shaft, yes, the new rocker shafts as well. Yes, that's right. Yeah. So we'll give all those a good clean up, and like I say, we'll have a look at those. But by the looks of things, it probably will need new rockers. There's two different rocker shafts as well. There's an early rocker shaft, which is like this one, which is known as the small one, the short one. And then later on, they actually made the rocker shaft slightly longer to put more of a register in the cam carriers. So there's two different sizes of rocker shaft as well, with a 6 and 7 mil bolt that runs up the inside, 6 on the short ones and 7 mil on the large ones.
Because I was quite surprised to see that these rocker shaft bolts pins run in the aluminium of the cam carrier.
That's right. Yeah.
With no bearings at all.
No. Well, no. That's basically as they go through the cam carrier. You'll find that this is. If you see, there's a narrow side there and a thick side there. This is what I was saying about the fact it hasn't been installed correctly. People automatically assume that it should be even distance from that side to that side, so it will sit centrally in the casting, but it needs to sit centrally for the rocker, so it actually needs to sit over here. So you can see there where the rocker's been running on that. If somebody's fitted this there,
Yeah.
And like I say, as you tighten these up, it swells up that end there to lock them in place.
Yeah.
But it also makes that swell up there as well, and
And
that pinches it up basically. So yeah, that's incorrectly fitted rocker shafts, and that's, you know, we'll go over it later on as well. You know, I've designed a seal kit that actually runs. They do an RSR seal kit because you usually get sort of oil migration through the down the rocker shafts, down the sides, because it never gives 100% seal once the engine's been stripped down and rebuilt. But they do an RSR seal that sits in there, which is not a good way of doing it. It doesn't seem to always work, especially seeing as a lot of these cars are sort of sat probably 4 or 5 weeks plus without being fired up. So the oil just migrates through the oil pump and fills the crankcase up. So it ends up with a head of pressure, which would sort of sit about that sort of level in the engine,
Yes.
so almost half filling the crankcases. So it's always got a head of pressure behind there of oil, and that'll basically then just migrate through there, and that's, you know, you'll find you've got oil leaks on the floor, and it's just basically just come out through the rocker seals. Now what we do is we've got a special seal which we'll go through later on, which is new caps for the end of this with O-rings that compress up against the bore of the cam carrier. Because usually you'll find that I don't know if you're a bit seeing on these, yeah, you get tiny scores of where the rocker shafts, when they get removed, as this rocker shaft comes out, it'll put a tiny score in there. Sometimes the scores are quite big, and you can't stop the oil from actually migrating down in there. So that's just something we do. Generally speaking, I mean, pretty much all the engines that leave here, we always fit all those rocker shaft seal kits because the cars don't get used as dailies.
Yeah, that's the big difference between the old days and now, really,
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's right. And
Cars are only used at the weekends.
yeah, exactly that. And you have to handle a whole load of different problems.
Yeah.
And it's sort of these problems just evolve over the years due to the cars getting used less and the fatigue of the magnesium and the aluminium, and it's always changing. It's always evolving what you physically have to do to these engines to actually keep them going. When there's a prime example there of a scored. I don't know if you can catch that. Just see the scores inside there.
Let me just zoom in on that and see what we can see. Yeah, okay.
So that's that is actually quite deep. What we're trying to do is clean that up, and the rocker shaft seal kit would actually we could get around that problem.
Yeah.
Whereas under normal circumstances, you'd be throwing these away and
Yes,
getting a
absolutely.
new set. But you know, obviously, you can pick up second-hand ones, but obviously they don't supply them anymore,
Yeah.
brand new. So.